So we come to the last part of the issue, and as we can see, what Savitri is striving for is material conquest. So it's physical death, not just death at different levels and living in the consciousness of immortality. It's very easy for yogis to dwell in the consciousness of immortality. But here it's a question of Satyavan's body's material destiny being cancelled. So the idea is that if his material destiny will be cancelled, it means all the forces of matter, they come under the part of the spirit's conquest. That's what it logically means. Without it, it's impossible. So that is what she is striving. Matter and, of course, our physical body as part of it is the god of these forces. It's the fort for these dark forces, and that is why in Indian thought we will see that it is Prithvi which is being taken up by again and again by the asuras, and she goes and cries that there is weight over me. So the significance of matter is immense. Matter is the condition for the manifestation of the spirit. Otherwise, if it is just a question of realizing the spirit, the self, the soul, countless people have done and countless more will do subsequently. But that's not enough for Sri Aurobindo and the mother. There are ways already well established, and one can pick and choose, withdraw from material life, realize the self, or go still further. And as far as the body is concerned, let it go through its own process through the law of past momentum and the present law of earth nature. And after a while, drop it and enter into the realm of the spirit. But that is not the goal. Realizing the divine is important because without it, you cannot work on this. This conquest has to be the spirit's conquest over matter. And matter doesn't yield. So that is the whole issue. But if it doesn't yield, then there is no possibility of divine life. That means one will always be subject to imperfections, limitations, everything. Take a simple example that we may have a lot of music inside us. We may have even learned music. But to play the music, you need an instrument. If the instrument is not proper, then you can't play that music. So that is the importance of the bodily existence, which we have been missing out since a long time in Indian thought. It is there in ancient thought, but has been lost down the centuries post Buddhism and post Shankara. So Sri Aurobindo brings it back and takes it to its fullness. And that fullness is divinization of the body. Now, this is also consistent with the whole idea of evolution. So, each time there is evolution, there is a new manifestation. So, matter has already become mentalized, it responds to mind, in human beings at least. Why? Because now there is a connectedness between the mind and physical matter in a human being. It is not so in lower animals because that connection is not there. So it has already become living thanks to the connection. So in a plant life, matter responds to the force of life. But at the level of mountains and rivers, it is not yet there. Though everything is there, but the connectedness is not there. So similarly, when this physical matter, mentalized matter, becomes responsive and open to the divine consciousness, then slowly it will become divinized. then spontaneously this material life will obey, follow, and become a perfect expression of the divine consciousness. This is the logic that operates. And that's why opening to the Divine Mother is a part of that process, most important. Because opening to the Divine Mother means opening to the divine consciousness. Now, opening it directly is dangerous. Now, the Divine Mother allows that much influx. She regulates the process, prepares on, on one side, at the material end, on the other hand, how much this being can receive. And so, progressively, she takes us. So, if we try to open matter directly to divine consciousness, if at all there exists such a Herculean being, the risk is that it will break down. It's not as simple as that, so it takes time, maybe a few generations, but it's worth the endeavor. At least we have the satisfaction of having lived and living for something very beautiful. And it's always been like that. If you see monkeys, they are so curious because the mind is now beginning to stir. And as I was saying, among the 9 subspecies of human beings, there is a particular subspecies, I think it is just 2 subspecies before the modern human, or 1 before that, where first time you can feel the coming of the thinker. Before that, you don't feel the thinker. Mind is playing, stirring, but the thinker begins to come much later, after so much pressure. So we have to understand the time taken in this process. This is not a process of impossible miracles, because it is an evolutionary law. The law must change. It won't be, it's not like a miracle happening in a freak person who has become supramental. There is nothing like that. There is a group islands of humanity. Maybe somebody, some people here, some people in Auroville, some people in isolated place somewhere in Himalayas, some people like your Quest group, who knows? I mean, so many small little islands. Yes, which are aspiring towards this because they have the call. And one day, as a result of all this combination, there will be a tipping point. That's how the process works. Extremely simple, if you look at it.
And the pressure is from inside
As well as above. So there is a double pressure.
the double pressure.
So people will say, but that's not how we see now. See, the problem of science is, the other day I was watching very interesting debate between a mystic and a scientist. So scientist says, science is the only way that you can arrive at truth. It is the only seeking. What a scientist, a material scientist, a good scientist understand that scientist operates within the material frame. And unless he stretches it seeking to feel what is beyond the material frame, it will always be limited. And matter you can keep stretching, any limit. You may find the minutest particle, you can find still more minute, because there is no limit to that. You can dig into the abyss. But first leap is a leap of faith, in the sense there is a possibility which is greater. The faith that is demanded is not in blind superstition. There is a possibility. Then you seek. That's why we seek. And when you seek, because you have already had that there is a possibility, you end up discovering a way or means for that. So this is the, you can open, always open. हाँ ओके 11 11:30 बजे हाँ थैंक यू सो दिस इज हाउ द होल प्रोसेस टेक्स प्लेस ओके सो दैट्स द so he has a field in which the material scientists operate, and very good. There are ways and means by which he operates, perfectly fine. But if he has to understand the spiritual science, then he has to fulfill the conditions of the spiritual science and operate through those methods. Fundamentals will remain: observation, analysis, inference, same process. But he has to enter into that field, because it's entering into a subjective field where many things are not measurable. Yes, for example, love. How do you measure love? How do you measure faith? They're all ingredients of inner life. Leave aside the greater states of consciousness, peace.
Grace.
Now people will say, "Oh, you are experiencing peace." There is no objectivity. Now the person knows, and it has objective ramifications. You sit in the company of somebody who has realized peace, you feel peaceful. But no, this is a feeling. Now, if you start with that kind of a circular argument, then there is no breakthrough. Then the best is okay, you don't believe is perfectly fine, you follow your way. I have my way. So one agrees to disagree. That's the utmost. But if you are a seeker, you will after some time seek beyond. For the simple reason because that simply man cannot live content only by believing that I am this mass of chemistry. Then there is no basis for anything, including seeking. Who is seeking truth? Dust. Where is the seeking coming from? So, scientist argument has a fundamental flaw. So, that is how the process runs. And this is important because what we are going to read is precisely that. He starts, page 21. All now seems nature's vast machinery. So, at this point, if we look at things, it's as if there is a mechanical unfolding going on constantly. Machinery. An endless servitude to material rule. And long determinations, rigid chain. So, this is true that there is, as of now, a dependency on matter rather than conquest of matter. So, obviously, if there is an instrument you are playing and the instrument breaks, so the conclusion that a scientist will draw that look, the music was because of the instrument. But music continues. Even the musician continues. The instrument has broken. So your field was studying the instrument. You must make the instrument perfect. But music exists in its own way. The manifestation, the instrument is a condition for manifesting that music within. So this is the fundamental flaw. But to believe that musician is dependent on the instrument for the music, no, that's not true. For expressing music, he depends on that. And long determinations, rigid chain, her firm and changeless habits, aping her firm and changeless habits, aping law. So we are told, no, this is the law. One has to grow old, one has to fall sick, at some point one has to die. So, well, this is not a law but a habit. At some point, now one doesn't need to go very far to see it. There was an age, even material science would recognize, there was an age when people lived longer. If not 1,000 years, at least 100 years, 20 years was not uncommon. Even now, there are regions where people live long. So, over a period of, for some reason, various reasons, now we have a shorter lifespan. So, there is nothing secret about that one has to have this much lifespan. You have to find the conditions in which the lifespan can be longer. Another very interesting example, if you see, at least in India, the average height of the girl was much lower than the average height of the man. And the average height of the man and woman both were lower compared to their Western counterparts. Now, there is a change which is going on. Physically, people have observed that the girls are becoming taller and the average height of man and woman is growing taller. So, there was nothing sacrosanct that body has to be of this height. Things change, even at the most material level. But the moment we say it will be like that, then we are the one who has turned it into a law. It is nothing but a habit of nature. And there could be other kinds of habits, other kinds of arrangements. Her empire of unconscious, deft device. Her is, of course, material nature, and everything looks like she has created deft, clever devices all through, from brain to toe. Everything is a device. Annul the claim of man's free human will. So, everything is run according to the machine. Where is the scope of free will there? He too is a machine amid machines. So, what we call as thought, will, feelings is nothing but the machine. The brain cells are twitching, neurons, and thoughts arise. You think you are thinking? No, you are not thinking. It is the brain activity. So, heart beats faster, you feel a certain kind of emotion. When it feels beats slower, you feel you are calmer. Though the truth may be the other way around. But that's how it is projected and believed. A piston brain pumps out the shapes of thought. A beating heart cuts out emotions modes. So when heart is beating faster, so you feel you are in love or excitement or anger, onrush of energy. When the heart is beating slow, that means everything is quiet, cool. So it is the heart that is determining your state rather than the other way around. That is how the material scientist argues. Though there are a lot of experiment in this regard which prove the contrary. And yogis are known to influence their heartbeat and breathing patterns simply by the process of yoga. An insentient energy fabricates a soul. So there is no soul, there is a mechanical energy, and it plays through the brain, combines with the heart, and uses imagination, and you feel that you have found your soul. So that is how the science would, a kind of material science. Not all scientists, fortunately, there are very good scientists who understand that the limits of my sight are not the limits of light. And they do understand that there are phenomena which go beyond our understanding or even observation and perception. They are the true scientists. But there is a kind of, scientifical lobby. I use the word political scientists because they are very keen to use science for political purposes. So it serves to believe that there is nothing but matter. Because, why? Because if you believe there is anything greater than matter, then foundations of certain political philosophies collapse. So that's why they use the word scientific materialism, scientific socialism. It's words like that because it's on as if on this basis all are biological. But the moment you bring in, sometimes when such a person speaks, semi-humorously one can say, "Oh, so who are you? A piece of matter, a lump of meat?" In which case, what is the point of listening to all your arguments and everything, and equally my arguments? If I am a piece of meat, that's it. So intuitively we know we are not, but still it helps to sustain a certain kind of. This is political science. Actually, it is not political science in the sense science used for political purposes. Science in that as a subject. So there are scientists who are genuine scientists. They are not limited by these means. We'll wait. It will come. Yeah. Okay. Or the figure of the world reveals the signs of a tight chance repeating her old steps in circles around matter's binding post. So this is one of the arguments people give, that look, all this is fine, fairy tale, but conquest of matter, conquest of death, it's not possible. Strange part is material scientists believe it's possible, but all our spiritual thinkers they don't believe. So they say it's all dream. Who has seen anybody come alive? Well, 100 years or 10,000 years back or still further back, seeing the ape, if somebody said man will come who will fly in aircraft, nobody would have believed. 200 years back, 100, 15, 20 years back, when Mr. Wright said that I'll like to, try out a aeroplane, his father rubbished it. He said he has gone crazy. So, it's not a question of belief. Future is not a question of belief. Future is shaped by what we secretly aspire. So, if you see the Lamarck's idea of evolution, when there is a challenge, something in the species aspire. So, suddenly giraffes come on earth with long necks. We all read it. So, why can't human beings, if there is this aspiration, faced with the enigma of disease, death, right now we are trying outer means, slowly we will turn within and try inner means, and a day will come when we will discover from within a way to heal, a way to remain healthy, and a way to prolong life, and a way not to die. So, there is nothing impossible logically in it. Now, one day it is not going to happen today because one person thought. It will happen maybe a couple of centuries, provided this aspiration sustains itself. If not, still it will return. But after which cycle, that's a different thing, because as such aspirations never die. This aspiration that man can physically become immortal has been there since ages. Yes, and it keeps returning, keeps returning, keeps returning. Only the conditions have to be correct. So, conditions, obviously, a man in ignorance becoming immortal is a dangerous creature. So, it won't be allowed by nature. That's the whole thing. That you have to go through the process of yoga, inner purification, and so that one is ready to. And its purpose is not immortality for my own sake. Oh, I'll have a life, but for the divine manifestation. So that is what Sri Aurobindo brings in, that the effort thus far have been focused on the body largely. But the bodily effort has to be subordinated to the influx of a greater consciousness and at a greater force. So that there is a lot to be done inwardly. Inner cleaning, inner purification. First, there are levels of consciousness. We should be able to express. The body should not break down under the pressure. And this way, slowly, slowly, it will reach a point where it is ready to cross the barrier. Or a tight chance, repeating her old steps in circles around matter's binding posts, a random series of inept events to which reason lends elusive sense is here. So, if you really look at in one way, what happened? Suddenly somebody meets with an accident, falls sick, dies. So, reason tries to give a logic, but it's a purely material phenomena. Or it's a chance, it happens. It can happen to anybody. Nothing special about it. So this is the way chance is a very interesting word. Chance, randomness, fate, destiny are terms used to cover up our ignorance. Because we don't know the reason, miracles. We don't know the cause, the process. So we use the word or the forces at play. We use these nebulous words to cover up our ignorance. But there is nothing like chance. There has to be a play of forces.
This world is not built by random bricks of chance.
Even pure logic, it is impossible. What is chance? How did the forces operate? Now the forces operating upon us at any given point of time are tremendous. Just look at it, there are material forces, which may include the breakfast you have had, how good or bad a sleep you have had. Then when you are going in a vehicle, the condition of the vehicle, all these are purely material things. Then your inner state, peace, agitation, anger, your faith, your connectedness to something greater, higher, and of the cosmic play, all these are operating simultaneously on all of us. Forces that are at once material, psychological, vital, and spiritual. They are operating at any given point of time upon any of us. So we can't normally understand this complex play. So we use the word chance. Or the empiric lives, or the empiric life's instinctive search, or a vast ignorant mind's colossal work. That is how this creation appears like that. Creation appears when looked at it purely from the point of view of a rigid scientist. A material scientist now understand that it's not just there's so much order and law and harmony. It's impossible not to wonder. Even the physical body, if you really look at the physical body, it's impossible not to wonder and you know see that there is a creator or a consciousness which is working from within. But wisdom comes and vision grows within. So nobody has to convince anyone. Wisdom will come, inevitable, and vision will grow from within. The nature's instrument crowns himself her king. So, right now, our soul is like a plaything. Wherever nature drags, it goes helplessly. But one day, this being, one day it will reach its, it will be the king of all these forces. He feels his witnessing self and conscious power. Instead of being a slave of nature, we begin to become aware of a conscious power that has shaped the steps of world. His soul steps back and sees the light supreme. So this is the inevitable destiny. And what do you discover then? A Godhead stands behind the brute machine. So then we discover that this is a brute machine, but there is a Godhead who is constantly working. And one day this brute machine, this crude machine, must change into a more heavenly instrument worthy of the user. Now starts this last movement. This truth broke in a triumph of fire. A victory was won for God in man. The deity revealed its hidden face. So, this truth that comes like a revelation, like a fire, oh, I need not be a slave of nature. That broke in like a triumph of fire. This fire within, this will within, has emerged, and suddenly the deity who was hidden in the heart of Savitri now reveals her face. The great world mother now in her arose. A living choice reversed, fate's cold dead turn. So now again connecting to the morning when she wakes up, the great world mother rises in her and she makes a choice. The choice is, no, I don't accept fate. I fight with it instead. Affirm the spirit's tread on circumstance. Pressed back the senseless, dire revolving wheel and stopped the mute march of necessity. A flaming warrior from the eternal peaks. She has come to fight this battle. Empowered to force the door, denied and closed. Smote from death's visage, its dumb absolute. So death is a mask. She is going to tear it off. What is hidden behind the mask? And burst the bounds of consciousness and time. So this is where book 1, canto 2 ends. And in these two cantos, Sri Aurobindo has introduced us to the theme, to the main protagonist, who is none else but the Divine Mother, why she has come down, what she has come to work out, what this world is as of now, and the change that she wants to bring. She wants to make us masters of destiny and fate. So, there are two kinds of mothers. One who will come and keep feeding the child, spoon feeding. So, after a while, what happens to the child? Her love becomes a problem. So there have been always divinities who will come and what you want, bacha, you take it, whatever you want, you take it. But that is one aspect. She wants us to be empowered. So that in future, in time to come, at some point man has to be empowered. Otherwise it makes no sense. There will always be duality. That man will pray and God will grant. Which is good, beautiful, but it can make us also extremely lazy and we stop evolving. So we have to also evolve into that possibility. So the divine mothers or the avatar always comes to show us that it can be done by you. That's what Sri Aurobindo repeatedly speaks of the avatar. He does not just come to show miracles. He comes to show us that this can be done by you because I can do it as a human being. You too can do it as a human being. Only thing is we have to trust and go forward on the way. So here we can close. Any questions we can take.
After this starts Ashwapati's
Yoga, yeah.
and that is
It starts with that one line, and that one line on the next canto you can see.
desire compared to
So now the natural logical question is, all right, but how has Savitri come upon earth? So you can open it. Just keep opening, otherwise you know what will happen. So that's okay, but better to open. Otherwise, what they are really wanting. So basically, the whole story of Savitri is from the morning when Savitri, or rather the night just before the dawn, till next day evening when sun is setting. That's the story. The whole book is about those 18 hours.
that time she brings
Yeah, that is the day. No, but what all she has done. So now what about the other pages? So Canto 3 onwards, it all goes into a flashback. How she came to earth, who brought her down. So now Ashwapati. So what did he do to bring her down? Why did he, what was he seeking? So how did Savitri come down? So Ashwapati's tapasya will come. Okay. Then Savitri will be born, how she has grown up, all that in detail. So how did she equip herself? How did she meet Satyavan? They got, married, and the prophecy, because all that is in the background. The poet is showing us from the point where she has woken up and Satyavan must die. Now we are clued about the background story because of our ethos. But many people don't know. Even many people in India don't know about Ashwapati, for example. They know he did a yagna and Savitri was born. What was his yagna? Why was he doing a yagna? Why he wanted a child? So all that he describes. What kind of yagna was it? Now in the classical story, it is he did yagna for so many days, and that's it.
this was the yagya.
This is the yagna which.
The yagya.
So now it will start from Canto 3. What tapasya he is engaged in.
So Canto
And all this are Sri Aurobindo's own experiences. So from Canto 3 onwards, who is Ashwapati? He has himself come, a being who has come from above, and he has come with a quest that why is humanity in this state? What could be the solution? So he arrives at various realizations of yoga. All the traditional realizations you will see here. Then he discovered the secret knowledge. And there he discovers a new possibility. In Canto 5, you will see a new possibility. He says, oh, so there is a new possibility. There is a greater plan. So then he says, okay, this greater plan, but if I have this greater plan activated in me, whereas others there is nothing, that's not fair. So he renounces his personal realization.
Oh, in Canto 5 he sees the greater possibility.
Yeah,
So when he begins with a smaller possibility.
he
It's not that
begins.
he begins with an aspiration for a child who will bring immortality. That's
Ha,
not his
no,
initial
no, no. He
intent.
begins. Canto 3 is about his experiences. We are not much told what kind of tapasya he was doing, but he has experiences which start taking him from one layer to another, to another, to another. Various kind of new experiences. Actually, in Canto 3 itself, he starts experiencing possibilities of a superhuman kind. That's how the mother put it, that many of his experiences are those which the coming humanity will have naturally. So they are superhuman experiences. Now, Canto 4 is, as a result of all this, he has a secret knowledge. Then Canto 5. So Canto 3 and 5 are actually in continuity, Sri Aurobindo's words. But in 4, there is a kind of interlude, secret knowledge. What has he discovered till now? But the whole experiences which start in Canto 3, they continue in Canto 5, where he suddenly discovers, he says that, why only me? Why not this earth? That's when he is seized with this aspiration. A will, a hope immense, now seized his heart. Why not the body itself? So that's when he experiences the descent. And he realizes that yes, it is possible. But again, he doesn't want it only for himself. That's why when people say, why did Sri Aurobindo not supramentalize himself? Fools, because of us idiots. As simple as that. I mean, that's the answer. Because if he would have gone ahead, we would have again put him out there and said, so nice, can you give me something for my child? Can you give me something for my exams? Because that's how we have habitually dealt with divinity like that. And there would be such a gap, it will be impossible to communicate. Shining, all luminous being, half the time we will not even see because he will appear and vanish. Our eyes are not accustomed. So you say, oh, there is a great being, you ask any manat, pura ho jayega. But he didn't come for that. So he renounced this possibility. That's what Mother keeps reminding us on the Samadhi. But people ask such silly questions. Why Sri Aurobindo himself did not get immortalized? For these fellows wearing this skin, he didn't want his tapasya to bear fruit for him only. He wanted it to be shared by us. But to share with us needs some preparation. We cannot do that tapasya, but at least some preparation. Who will prepare us? Divine Mother. So the Mother comes.
All these Swamis also, they derive, go to the Swami, they say, Sri Aurobindo was great, but वो खुद ही नहीं कर पाए, तो what's the point of going?
Swamis to chalo, they don't understand, I understand, because Swamis are anyways self-created, living in an illusionary cell. But devotees and disciples don't understand. See, Swamis, I understand that, they have limitations of intellect, limitations of everything. Unfortunately, they wear a garb and suddenly they are installed, so they have to act wise. It is the worst situation to be in. To wear a garb and then you have to act wise. So they have no choice. See, the papal robe is a big burden that some people bear. But then the Divine Mother comes. She says, okay, I'll prepare. So he says that, I can't prepare them. I am experiencing it. But I want others to have it. So she says, others are not ready. You are ready. First she will say that. Last part of Ashwapati's Yoga. Book 3, Canto 4. He says, no, but I want it for others. You have to make them ready. She says, but man will break down if I come prematurely. He says, nothing doing. Everything is possible for you. You can change time, you can change everything. Then she says, okay, I will come. I will come. So she comes and prepares mankind. That preparation is going to take long. But then, from book 4 onwards, you have mother coming, growing up, Savitri and Satyavan. Satyavan is the ideal human disciple. The soul. which says, "You have come, all doubts cleared, offered at your feet, descend upon our soil where we are lying, and if I have nothing much to give you, but simple things I can give you, some fruit, some running stream, no aqua guard filter or anything. If you are satisfied with all this, please come." That's how Satyavan actually addresses her, no? If you are ready. So this is the offering. Who can make such offering? The bhakta of the bhaktas. Divine does not want ostentatious things. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. But whatever is there, give completely. He doesn't want that big mic to be arranged, billboards to be put up with such hoardings. He doesn't want. He doesn't like show off. Ari, you gave yourself. So he gives himself. And Savitri accepts. And whom does she leave behind before meeting Satyavan is also interesting. All the saints and sages and Swamijis. Yeah, in the quest. In the quest, Savitri is now searching for the ideal mate. And she goes all around. She rejects them. They are not ready. But Satyavan is ready. Because they are all filled with their own knowledge. And they have their knowledge. It's not that they have their own experiences. So if they accept this yoga of transformation, they have to renounce that. Satyavan is surrendered.
They have to renounce all that they have.
Yeah.
They are not getting.
So Satyavan, while living normally, has gained a lot. He is this Veda knower of the unwritten book. Satyavan is described like that. So he has got it all spontaneously. Certain truths by dwelling upon life, by leading a true life, sincere life. So, and then he says something is missing. That when I turn to the self, I lose the body. When I turn into the body, I lose the self. This is my problem. Like a child, mother, this is my problem. I want all the time both to be filled. Then she says, she comes down. And
It is so beautifully in that canto. And I was completely satisfied. But now,
now,
after seeing you,
Before I had seen you, I was very satisfied.
exactly.
you are so beautiful.
So this is the Satyavan. Then book 6, she says, okay, I hold you, take you together. So death says, whatever you may do, you are a divine being. This fellow is under my grip. I won't leave him. So Satyavan must die. Destiny. Now this is where the problem starts. Savitri she's not doing yoga for herself, but for earth and humanity, those who are willing to go through the process. So she equips herself. So book 7 is about she must recapture all that she is and who she is and what for she has come. So book 7 is the book of yoga. Okay, now book 8. Just see what is the canto. It's interesting. Huh? Death in the forest is what canto? Yes. So these two are the missing cantos. So originally what happens is in the scheme of Savitri, Sri Aurobindo wrote canto 1, canto 2. What is the logical thing next now? She wants to walk into the forest where there will be death, isn't it? So in the original plan, it was book 1, canto 1, what we read. Book 1, canto 2, the issue. Book 1, canto 3, death in the forest. Okay, but then while he brought all other things, for whatever reason, he left the canto. He did not change it to, the Lord, and it's so beautiful. Thanks, he did not change it. Now we can connect it. So there it starts reconnecting with the story of this morning. So just read a few lines from there. I'll read.
Leave it as canto 3, we didn't want to change it, right?
Which I'll just read one line from there. So you see, she has woken up in the morning, and then what happens? Then canto 3, death in the forest. Now it was here in this great golden dawn By her still sleeping husband, Lane she gazed. Now you see the whole thing is connected. She has got up and Satyavan is still
There is a
sleeping.
little footnote. The Book of Death was taken from Canto 3 of an early version
Ah,
of Savitri, which had only 6 cantos and an epilogue. It was slightly revised at a late stage, and a number of new lines were added. So then it was put in the as
yeah. So it has remained as Canto 3. But this is where the flashback connects. So now she wakes up and Satyavan is sleeping. She is gazing at Satyavan. So there is a beautiful description.
Book 8, Canto 3.
Just a few lines we'll read, just to see, Now it was here in this great golden dawn. By her still sleeping husband, Lane, she gazed into her past as one about to die, looks back upon these sunlit fields of life, where he too ran and sported with the rest, lifting his head above the huge dark stream into whose depths he must forever plunge. So now she looks at Satyavan, and you can see the first two canto and the third canto. Connectivity is very obvious, but their levels are very different from the rest of Savitri. So you will see that this canto 3 will be like it is an earlier draft. It has not been much revised. So you will see the difference of how Sri Aurobindo takes on from book 1 canto 3 to what heights of grandeur. This is still like a hill mountain running through that terrain.
Because from there it's been brought or fast forwarded here.
Yes, also because he did much work on it. It was an earlier draft. So, but later on, the yoga and the experiences accumulated.
When Sri Aurobindo was revising Savitri before leaving his body, Neeraj said, "What about this book?" He said, "That will see."
So, Book of Death was left unrevised, the whole Book of Death.
And he never touched it.
But Canto in the Book of Death, Canto 3 still belongs to much earlier version. Whereas the rest of Book 9, Book 10, no, even these other books were written later on. So even though they are all unrevised, but Book 8, single canto, was written much earlier. Whereas 9, 10, 11 were written later.
In 20s, right? In 1920s.
Yeah. So that is why you will see the unevenness. Then she will go, afternoon will be there, and she is waiting when what will happen, and suddenly death comes, closes in, Satyavan dies. Then she goes in pursuit of Satyavan for conquering death. Now why she has to do that? She is a Jagan Mata, she can simply suddenly reveal herself, and that's the whole point. This is to change the law. Death must be convinced. See, we have been doing all this all the time. If you have a problem, अच्छा मिनिस्टर साहब को बता देना, so हमारा हो जाएगा. वो हो जाता है. That's not the issue. हमारा हो जाएगा, but दूसरे का नहीं होगा. दूसरे को भी, the other person also has to find some contact, but the law will remain archaic. So she doesn't want that. She wants to change the law. That's why Satyavan must die. That's why each of us must go through the process until, it's a process. It's not like, okay, for me, suddenly she will do an arbitrary miracle. She will do. All that is one part. But the real work is this change. So death has to consent. And it consents at a point of time. And then she says, all right, good, you have given, but he be my instrument. So still it resists. So that's when she burns away the mask of death. And in place of death, there is the one who was hiding behind. So he says, Savitri, it's wonderful. Great, you have done it. Nobody could do it. But the point is, man is not ready. Again, the same problem comes in. Says, you want me to suddenly change everything, but man is not ready. She says, yes, I know, but if man is, I take the undertaking. But if man is not ready, then let a greater being arise. Doesn't matter. But it has to be done. So after quite a bit of back and forth convincing, he says, okay, he is the cosmic divine who is hidden inside various, all the masks. He says, okay, then you also know, I do not grant things which are beyond me. Within the cosmic law, I can give you. But this is beyond the cosmic law. Okay? So the law has to change. That only the transcendent can change. So you have to bring the transcendent into play. So you go there, ascend and bring down. So there when she goes, you have the voice and she herself is there and she, it's a very beautiful description. But see the interesting part, in Indian thought, you have this that all the asuras, they ask boon. So they ask for asuras, they ask for immortality. Now, why do all the three gods at different points of time to different beings express their inability to grant immortality? And they are not liars.
Because it's against the law.
You cannot. They are part of the cosmic divine. They cannot. Exceptional cases, they can intervene. That's what the cosmic divine can do at the most. I can intervene.
And also they add the riders just
Yeah,
to make that fellow happy.
No, because the first part is they cannot give immortality. So they are not lying. They say we cannot grant that. So what about the next possibility? That you ask. So within that realm of possibility, when the asuras ask, this I can grant you. So it is not a cunning they are playing, they are being factual. Immortality they cannot grant. And for that you need the transcendent divine sanction. Their limitation. Exactly. Which people often, passingly, when they notice, they don't realize. They think, oh, they can grant, they are just playing the fool. No, they are great beings. They are not expected to tell a lie just because. Then they might as well not give anything, knowing the chaos he is going to create. So they cannot grant it, but within the realm of cosmic possibility, they can help, intervene sometime. That much is given to them, to a particular devotee. But they cannot change the law. It's not given to them. So she goes and brings the divine acceptance or the assurance or the tathastu. And then after that she comes back. Now when she brings in book 12, now we are back to the scene. It is late evening. Satyavan has died and returned back. And Dhumat Sena, his father, has got the kingdom. So they are all coming. It's been late. They went in the morning. So no telephone, nothing. So, parents are all worried. And so many good things have happened that day. They want to share with Satyavan. They can't find. So they are calling Satyavan, Savitri, where are you? Suddenly they discover that they are lying below a tree. And all that has happened, nobody knows. So, but they see a glow. And they ask, what has happened? Something has happened. So Satyavan says, it looks like we have seen the face of eternity. But he is not conscious. No, he is not gone that way. He was carried. Something has happened, and all because of her who stands by my side. He doesn't know what has happened, but he says that lay all on her. She is the cause of all. So then they turn to her and ask that, what happened? She doesn't say, I went into realm of death and won the victory. She says, to feel love and oneness is to live. Is all the truth I know or seek, O sage? So she says very cryptic words. She says, I have to feel love and oneness. To feel love and oneness is to live. Is all the truth I know or seek, O sage. That's all. So they wonder at her two luminous words. What has she spoken? What does it mean? Means we are not living or what? So
Into the meaning of my
hard.
That to feel love and oneness is to live, and this the magic of our golden change.
Is all
The
that.
truth I know or seek.
Seek, O sage. Awaken to the meaning of my heart. That to feel love and oneness is to live, and this the magic of our golden change is all the truth I know or seek, O sage. So then, Epilogue, last bit. Then what happens? It is night. It's the last page of Savitri.
Epilogue का
Last page. It's the last page. Okay, so now we are connected to the night again.
158.24. From the entangling verges freed, they came into the dimness of the sleeping earth.
So you see, it starts at night before the dawn,
Yes.
and now it is late evening. So that is how it connects. And in between, the whole creation and creator all are packed into Savitri, we, our story, the human journey, Ashapati, which is Sri Aurobindo's own experiences, Savitri, the Divine Mother's experiences, the yoga, the yogas, all the yogas, the cycles of time, everything is packed in those 18 hours. By the flashback, of course.
Can I share something when we was young, when we heard the Satyavan and Savitri story, this is what I would remember, was that she goes and she argues with Yam and everything. And then, I mean, because of her whatever greatness and the kind of work she does, she gets two bulls. And those two bulls.
Three bulls. It's the same story which you, all of us, yeah.
Then how does one connect that? She says, I want to have children.
Yes, so
And I want my father-in-law to have eyes to see those children. Those are the two bulls. I don't know.
But you know the
That's what.
So that's what is also symbolic. That is also symbolic.
That's what I want to know. Where is that?
It will come. The Sri Aurobindo is kept faithful to the storyline. There is no change there. That's the beauty. No, it's very interesting. There are these three boons also, where she gets children. Dumat Sena must get his eye. All that Satyavan desires, but he puts it like a masterly way. He says, first I want all that Satyavan's heart desired. It's not like, he says what he desired he could not get. What a love. So, well, he desired that, parents should be having eyes, their kingdom. So, all that will come back. Second, then he says, okay, now this is enough. You are a fool. You have asked for transient things. Anyways, enjoy till one day I will take them away. So he says, no, I am not going back without Satyavan. He says, what do you mean? I have given you boon. He says, you have not done any favor on me. You have to give them. So he is all, full of scorn. That look, this lady, she doesn't know my power. I have given the boons because death can give the time-bound boons. So then he says that, okay, you go back, I give you such offsprings. They will be very mighty. Now he doesn't put a clause there that through your husband or offspring means you can go back, get married. You have offspring, there is no issue. So then Savitri tells him that I'm not going back now without my husband. He says, but why? He says, because your boon is resisting. Your gifts resist. He says, how my gifts are resisting? He says, how can I have... Are you asking me to do adharma? To go back? Get... So he says, yeah, what is there? You new faces will come, you'll forget. He says, no, I am not that kind. I will have children through him. Now he doesn't know. He's caught in his own. Then, in the traditional myth, before the boons, there is also argument between death and... So, in that argument, you will see Yamaraja changing into Dharmaraja. Last argument is that what is your dharma? So, here also, you see progressively, of course, Sri Aurobindo has prolonged it to fill in everything. All the different stances of Yama change. Finally, he becomes a being of dharma. And he says, well, I understand what you are saying. And I respect for who you are. And I can see you have the knowledge. You have the dharma. But I am now curious to know who you really are. Show yourself to me. I also want to worship the world mother. All my life, my life means I have done this dirty job, but I never had a chance to have a glimpse of the Divine Mother. Show yourself. So that's when she unveils. It's a beautiful description, and she shows who she is. So the Sri Aurobindo describes that the her robe is like the calm hot hour of heaven. Her forehead is like that. And these eyes are like the sun burning in the splendor of the sky, and each of the centers. And then now he is suddenly overtaken. He wanted to worship. Now he is going to finish. Who will stand ablaze? But this was her trick. Now he has no choice but to either dissolve completely, change, or else run away somewhere. So he tries to run away, resist, because her presence begins to become a torture to his darkness. He was not expecting that. He thought Divine Mother I'll see and worship and pray, and maybe I'll get a boon or two. And Satyavan, anyways, we'll see that later. But he is completely overtaken, and he says that, well, he doesn't say anything. He simply begins to experience torture in his whole being. Because darkness is like that. No, it feels the torture of light. And what the Divine Mother does now, he doesn't do anything. She starts licking up his thoughts, licking up his heart, everything, so that it can change. So he experiences her presence as a splendid agony in his nerves. That's how Sri Aurobindo describes.
That is negative is being taken away.
Yeah.
And,
Ah.
and the pleasure.
Yeah. And at the end of it, his darkness crumbles to dust, releasing man's soul. That I cannot, take the soul and take this. But she has not come only for Satyavan. So, for the greater purpose, this is the step. So, suddenly she experiences that there is a glass wall between her and Satyavan, even though they are alone. And that is because this has to be, she knows the law, that not just catching and taking him back, it must change. So the being who was wearing the mask, the cosmic divine, he comes, says, now what do you want? You take Satyavan, you go into the highest realm, live forever with him. She says, no, I want him back on earth with me. He says, it can be granted, but do you understand what it means? It means upsetting all the laws. Gods will become inferior to human being. What do I tell them? The link will be broken, evolutionary link. Men will have no karmic bondage, nothing. The whole chain will be gone. They will live free as the gods. It's too much to ask. But Savitri says, no, I am not asking Satyavan for my joy to go there and live forever in boundless Satyavan, boundless Savitri. I am asking his heroic soul to battle for life divine on earth. Because two of us are indissolubly linked. Together we have to create life divine here. At the end, very beautiful passages. I don't want to get into it because I won't like to stop then. And anyways, we'll read all that. And then she says, okay, if such be the case, all right, go further. That's where the decisive choice is made. So she makes the choice and comes back. It's amazing. As you go through, you'll see.
The conversion of death is so beautiful, the slow passage.
Yeah.
Even those called her the woman,
Ah.
the thing.
And even at the end, when there is the divine who grants the supreme, there also he writes the woman. She is the eternal feminine who understands the agony of creation.
There is a line there, I am woman, I see, I am, or something like this. Do you remember? What does that mean? She's replying to that.
So he says ki you are being irrational. You're not being logical. Because there is no God here. There is, if at all there is God, He is beyond. He has nothing to do with earthly life. So if you have this knowledge, you will be really free of this anxiety to bring back Satyavan, this desire, this attachment, all this, he's throwing those things, no? So she says, I see, or things like that, I act, I will. So then he says, know also, knowing you will cease to love.
Because of the transience of
Ha,
the and he's gone. Now get yourself somebody else.
ha,
That is the law of the land.
ha. So she says, when I have loved all, then I shall know. Sabka, exactly. That's what she says, oneness. I know that love is a vast embrace. That's how she puts it. So, all this we have covered in Beach Office. So, it's very interesting, you know.
Coming back to me.
One trip, last trip, if anyone a trip or last trip, you covered the whole Savitri.
Yeah, yeah.
From the first canto to the last canto in short.
Yeah, that was in short. So, there, yeah. So, now we can do this systematically.
Today also he's given you a précis.
And today also my entire
So we can do it time to time, every time you come. So what we can do is, let's say, Canto 3 we'll just pick up here and there. Canto 4 we will dwell at some length. Then Canto 5 we will again pick up from. Like that we will cover up in the next one up till book 1. We can finish.
The world staircase is, for me, the most complex one.
Which one?
The world staircase, Ashwapati as he rises, the greater.
The world stair. But that's a long. We have to.
Well,
But otherwise it's all available on the.
what is the symbolic meaning of the three rooms? Like,
So, symbolic meaning is Dyumatsena, Satyavan's father, is the divine mind, just as Satyavan is the soul. So, father means out of the mind the soul emerges. It is not born out of the mind, but it emerges out. So, but he is blind. So, the mind is blind. So, it must restore its sight. Mind has emerged from the divine mind, but here it is blind because it is put on matter's robe. So it cannot see. It doesn't know what is going to happen next moment. So Dyumatsena gaining sight means once again human beings developing that intuitive sight through which they can understand life better, know better, and act better.
there's an arising the mind.
Ha. So offspring means offspring of Savitri and Satyavan. So all the divine energies which should be there, in creation, which cannot come. The soul cannot fully bring out all its possibilities without the Divine Mother simultaneously entering into a mystic marriage. So that is why offsprings. So offsprings are always like that. New energies.
In the Vedas, when they talk about son, offspring, it's always an extension. of
Yes,
existence.
yes. And the new energies. That's how they are. Like if one sees a child in a dream or vision, it is about seeing either some aspect of the new consciousness or your own psychic being. So technically, yes, they are extension because they are also called as santan. But actually, it is about the new energies which are hidden inside, which come out, and thereby they extend. So they
We
mean.
call it birth of new consciousness.
Yes. So all these new possibilities, new powers, new energies, new states of consciousness emerging as a result of coming together of Savitri and Satyavan are the children. And of course, the kingdom is the kingdom of glory, which man has lost, is a helpless creature walking on two.
Out of mind, the soul is born, like mind is a part of matter.
Again, not born, emerged. It is involved there in creation, it will emerge. So, that's how in the Vedas often you will see also the fire is described as a child. How is a child? Is the youngest one. So mind is the elder. We become aware of a mind before and of our soul in the end, much later. I mean, in the sequence of evolution. Of course, once you are aware, then next life also you are aware fast. But even then, you will go through physical, vital, mental development. Then suddenly the soul begins to step out. So it emerges, just as mind emerges out of the vital, and vital emerges out of matter. But because of this emergence, ignorantly it is felt that they are born out of it or built out of it. But that's where the scientist mistakes that you cannot build something out of nothing, or if it's not already there as a possibility. That's where Sri Aurobindo speaks of involution preceding evolution.
Matter is vitalized, and matter and vital have been mentalized.
Actually, matter has been mentalized. But vital, first it has to be vitalized. It cannot.
Yeah, but even
Then
the
mat-
vital, even the vital is mentalized,
Yeah, comes under
both have
simultaneous
mentalized.
process, but
And all three need to be psychicized and spiritualized.
yes, and divinized. And divinized further. But the end point, end user is matter. I mean, end result is matter.
Because it's all
Yes, it's all there.
there.
Yeah. Because it's easy to, let's say, even supramentalized mind and the vital. Sri Aurobindo speaks of that. But it must penetrate into matter for the full perfection to take place.
Actually, what they say that you can live in the pure mind.
Ah,
I don't want to sully it with vital.
yeah.
तो तुम्हारा vital पड़ा है.
The vital
But
remains
then the whole
unmentalized.
Ah.
you have to mentalize the vital.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise
yeah.
the vital vitalizes the mind and misuses it.
Yeah.
So you have to first perfect your pure mind and then allow it to enter into the field of vital, get vitalized, but
Otherwise, lot of people do this, as you said. They enter into a state which is of a kind of cosmic intelligence, and they don't use the vital at all except for their everyday minimum activity. And
And the vital
they,
has not been purified.
yes, it's all there, but yogi is sitting on the whirlpool.
basically he's put a lid on it.
Ah,
He's put a lid
the
on it.
day it explodes, it explodes. So they have enough safeguard not to let it explode.
They put a lid on it. They
Yeah.
just put a lid on your trouble.
Yeah.
Put a lid on it. He's not cleared the
The volcano with a lid.
Hmm. Okay.